Welcome to Let's Get Aggressive with your hosts, Lester, that's me, and my trusty sidekick running around here, and that's Crow, the dog. This is just going to be my personal content contribution to the Marvel Champions Monthly. And this first episode is all about Doctor Strange aggression. Stephen Strange is the alter ego side of the Doctor Strange identity. He has 3 recovery, the mystic trait, and the text Stephen Strange begins the game with an Invocation deck, which is a 5-card deck when you'll use to great effect. And the ability natural talent action, discard the top card of the Invocation deck, limit once per phase. So I have a feeling you're really going to be wanting him to manipulate that deck so you get the perfect play. When you flip over to the hero side, you become Doctor Strange, gaining the Avenger trait, and you have 2 thwart, 1 attack, and 2 defense, and the ability Spell Mastery, action. Exhaust Doctor Strange, pay the cost of the top card of the Invocation deck, and resolve the special ability on that card. Doctor Strange has a hand size of 5 and 10 hit points. Stephen Strange has a hand size of 6. As for that Invocation deck, let's take a look at it. First of the invocations is the Crimson Bands of Psytalk. It's a 2-cost event, Invocation. Special, stun an enemy and deal 7 damage to it. Place this card in the Invocation deck discard pile. All of the invocations have that last line. This is going to be a powerhouse. That's stun and damage. Excellent. We move to Images of Icon, which is a 1-cost event, Invocation, with the special text Confuse the Villain and remove 4 threat from a scheme. That's any scheme. This is going to be one of the primary ways that we are going to manage threat, as the deck is geared towards smashing face, as all good aggression decks should be. I'm looking forward to using this card. We then move to the 7 Rings of Aragador. It's a 1-cost event, Invocation. Its special text reads, give up to 3 characters each a tough status card. So this is really interesting. You can give all the allies in the deck and yourself tough, or you can also give the villain and his minions tough, which comes in handy because of Vapors of Valtor. It's a 0-cost event, Invocation. With a special ability, choose a status card in play and replace that status card with a different status card. That is amazing. So you can turn tough into confuse and stun. You can turn stuns into tough. It's going to be amazing. I can't wait to use this one. And then finally, we round out the Invocation deck with Winds of Watum. It's a 0-cost event, and its special ability is to draw 3 cards. Now, you do have to exhaust Doctor Strange in order to do these invocations, but in the long run, I think that extra little mini game is going to make him so exciting to play. Let's move on to his hero kit. We'll start with the events. Astral Projection is a 2-cost event with the spell and thwart abilities. There are 2 of them in this deck, and it says hero action, thwart. Choose a scheme, remove 3 threat from that scheme, look at the top card of the encounter deck. For each boost icon, you remove an additional threat from the chosen scheme. It can be discarded for a mental resource. Once again, a little bit of threat management built right in. Excellent. Then, Magic Blast is a 3-cost event. It's an attack and a spell. It's a hero action attack. Deal 5 damage to an enemy and discard the top card of your deck. If that card's printed resource is physical, you stun that enemy. Energy, you deal 2 damage to the enemy. Mental, you confuse the enemy, or you do all of the above if it's a wild card. This card can be discarded for energy resources. Master of the Mystic Arts is a 1-cost event. Hero action. Pay the printed cost of the top card of the Invocation deck, resolve its special ability, and then place it back on top of the Invocation deck. There's 2 of it in this deck, and it can be discarded for mental resources. This is a way of recurring or doing back-to-back same invocations. Super excellent. Protective Ward is a 1-cost event. It's a spell. Hero Interrupt. When a treachery card is revealed from the encounter deck, cancel all of its effects and discard it. This can be discarded for a physical resource, which is very key to this deck. There's 2 of them in this deck. Now, this is going to be excellent. Just can't wait to cancel Shadows of the Past at the perfect moment. Mystical Studies is a one-cost event. It's an alter ego action. Search your deck and discard pile for a Doctor Strange card and add it to your hand and shuffle your deck. It's discarded for a physical resource. This is going to be excellent. There is only one of it in the deck, but it's a way for you to search for your artifacts or that spell you need at the opportune moment. It's basically an additional copy of every card in your deck, as far as the hero cards are concerned. Magical Enhancements are a one-cost upgrade. There are two of in the deck. It's a condition and spell. You can play it under any player's control, and your hero gets one thwart, plus one attack, and plus one defense. And then this card has a forced interrupt that when the round ends, you discard the magical enhancements. So for an entire round, you get to buff every one of your stats. We move to the Cloak of Levitation. It's a 2-cost upgrade, artifact item. When it's in play, you have the aerial trait. And hero action, exhaust Cloak of Levitation to ready Doctor Strange. This can be discarded for a physical resource. This is going to be a powerhouse, letting you do invocations and other actions in the same turn. I'm just really, really, really amped for that. We then have the Eye of Agamotto, a 2-cost upgrade artifact item. Hero resource, exhaust the Eye of Agamotto to generate a wild resource. This can be discarded for an energy resource. I believe that this card is going to be huge. It's working in concert with one other card in this deck that's kind of the focal point. We then have the trusty sidekick and signature ally, Wong. He's a 3-cost ally with 1 thwart, 2 attack. He has consequential damage for both of those. He has the Mystic trait and 3 hit points, and action. Exhaust Wong, choose to either heal 1 damage from your identity or discard the top card of the Invocation deck. It's discarded for a wild card, or wild resource. I like this guy. You can heal while in hero form. And finally, we round out the hero kit with the Sanctum Sanctorum, a 1-cost support location, alter ego action, exhaust Sanctum Sanctorum, and shuffle a spell from your discard pile into your deck and draw a card. It can be discarded for a mental resource. All in all, I think this hero kit is solid, well-rounded, and I believe that Doctor Strange is going to have very, very interesting play styles. So now let's move on to the other cards, our aspect and basic cards. We'll start with the allies. We're going to start with Tigra here. She's a 3-cost ally with 1 thwart and 2 attack, taking consequential for each. She's an Avenger with 3 hit points. Response. After Tigra attacks and defeats a minion, heal 1 damage from her. She is discarded for a mental resource, which is a little counterintuitive for part of what this deck is trying to do, but I'm really excited to use her with Enraged. Hercules, I'm just going to give him a try. He costs 6 as an ally. He has 1 thwart, 3 attack, suffering consequential for each, and 4 hit points. He's an Avenger and Olympus traded here ally, and it says reduce the cost to play Hercules by 1 for each minion engaged with you. He can be discarded for a physical resource. That's kind of more so why I have him in here than for his actual presence on the board. And this is the main crux of the deck. We've got Hulk, 2-cost ally, can't thwart, but he has 3 attack with 1 consequential damage and 5 hit points. Avenger Gamma traded, and a forced response. When he attacks, you discard the top card of your deck. If its printed resource is physical, you deal 2 damage to an enemy. Energy, you deal 1 damage to every character. Mental, you discard Hulk. Wild, you do all of the above. Awesome. And he's discarded for an energy resource. And rounding out our ally suite, we have Mockingbird, a 3-cost ally, 1 thwart, 1 attack, consequential for each, 3 hit points, shield, and spy trait. Response. After Mockingbird enters play, stun an enemy, and she can ideally be discarded for a physical resource. That's the main synergy here. And being able to stun an enemy and then having your invocation change that into confusion if you need, that's an excellent combo. Now moving on to the events. We're going to try 1 copy of Warning in this deck. It's a 0-cost event with the defense trait, and it has interrupt, defense. When a hero would take any amount of damage, reduce that amount by 1. Now, it can be discarded for a physical. That's kind of the main reason it's in here. However, I like the idea that I can stop ping damage to maybe keep my toughness statuses in play. We've got 3 times Skilled Strike, which is a new aggression event. It costs 0, and it is a skill. It says interrupt. When your hero makes a basic attack, it gets +2 attack for that attack. And it's discarded for a physical resource. So kind of a way to use all these buffs to do lots of damage with Doctor Strange straight up. We also have Relentless Assault, which is one of the other key cards of this deck. It's a 2-cost event. Attack. Hero attack. Deal 5 damage to a minion. If you paid for this card using a physical resource, this attack gains overkill, meaning all excess damage goes on to the villain. It's discarded for an energy resource, which isn't the worst. But this is one of the major players in this deck. We then have Uppercut, which is a 3-cost event. We're going to put 2 of them in the deck. It is an attack event. Hero action attack, deal 5 damage to an enemy. Smack. And that's right. This is just a way to push through more damage to get that extra damage that we probably are going to need in the long run. And those are all of the events. We're going to move to our upgrades here. We have a 1 copy of Enraged in the deck. It's a 1-cost upgrade condition. Attach it to an ally, max 1 per ally. Attached ally gets +2 attack and takes 1 consequential damage after it attacks, or +1 consequential damage. So on all of the allies, this really makes them shine, be able to get in there and deal a lot of damage. And it can also be discarded for a physical resource in a case of emergencies. We have a copy of Yarnbjorn, which is a 1-cost upgrade, Asgard weapon. It is restricted, but that doesn't come into play here. And then it says response. After your hero attacks an enemy, spend a physical resource to deal 2 damage to an enemy. So any enemy. I really, really like this weapon. It is super well suited and quite thematic. You know, the Sorcerer Supreme wielding an Asgardian weapon. Moving to combat trading. This is a 2-cost upgrade. We have 1 copy in the deck. You play it under any player's control, max 1 per player, and it increases the hero's attack by 1. So +1 attack. This can also be discarded for a physical resource. I think you can see the theme here. We're trying to really enhance the amount of chances that Hulk has to really kick ass. And finally, we're going to use 2 copies of Enhanced Physique, which is a 2-cost upgrade condition. It has 3 physical counters when it comes into play. And then you can exhaust it and remove 1 physical counter from it to generate a physical resource. So it's just a way to keep some physical resources on the board for mainly Relentless Assault. And it can be discarded for a physical resource, Synergy. We've got some supports in the deck too. You pretty much have to. Now, Helicarrier is really interesting here. It costs 3 for support. It's a location shield traded support. You can only have 1 per player, and it says action: exhaust Helicarrier, choose a player, reduce the resource cost of the next card that player plays this phase by 1. And it's a physical resource. That's part of the synergy, but the fact that you can exhaust it to reduce the cost of an invocation is really interesting, and I can't wait to see how that comes into play. We're going to have 1 copy of Avengers Mansion in this deck. It's a 4-cost support, Avenger location, max 1 per player, and you exhaust it, choose a player, that player draws a card. Now, this is a little risky because we're putting an extra mental resource in the deck to have this, but I think it's essential to try to be able to draw cards because we're trying to get those singletons and set up. And finally, our resource package, we have Energy, just a 2 booster, easy. Strength is a double. It's got a double whammy, 2 physical resources there, and then Power of Aggression ×2, which is a wild resource, and it just doubles the number of resources that it generates when you're playing aggression cards. That's not going to come into play that often. It's more so for that fun wild resource. And now let's move on and just take a look at the list and kind of talk about what's going on here. So mainly we are focusing on Hulk interactions, and we also want to focus on Relentless Assault, using our physical resources to deal as much damage as possible. You need to be very careful and utilize your very limited threat reduction abilities, and you got to use them to great effect. But other than that, I believe this deck is going to be excellent. Here's a quick look at the spread, and that'll be all, folks. See you later.